trouble is, Andrew, his sense of entitlement, and people saying he probably doesn't even know how to boil an egg because everything's been done for him throughout his life. It's certainly going to be very humbling for him. Will he take it on the chin and accept that his fall from grace is permanent and that he has to now rebuild his life? Well, I think it's going to be a tough one.
Let's begin with revelations from the Times this morning that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has finally agreed to leave his 30-room Windsor mansion after it became clear his closest ally, his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, was deserting him. She will not be joining him in Sandringham when he makes the move, meaning the couple will be living apart for the first time 30 years since they divorced. Have a listen to the brother of Virginia Giuffre speaking to Aisha Hazarika on Times Radio. Sky Roberts and his wife Amanda gave their reaction to the latest developments and spelled out why this shouldn't be the end of the matter.
I don't think they can hide in the shadows anymore. I think there has been so much pressure put by the survivor. So many things have come forward. Documentation, emails, the birthday book being released. I mean, those were people that were clearly in his inner circle. And in that book, it's so clearly obvious that these people were aware. If they had not participated, they were aware. And so it's time. Everyone who has been affiliated deserves to have to answer these questions that survivors have been pushing for so long. And it is not their burden to carry. It is our government, the Department of Justice right now is sitting on this information, and how shameful our administration has been acting and calling it a hoax. And again, we commend the UK because we've seen them at least put light on people, shame them for their associations for Jeffrey Epstein. And we need to see the same action here, and we need to go further.
And what would your message be to Andrew? If you could make a direct appeal to him, what would your message be?
I think it's time to come forward. I think it's time to reveal everything that you knew. It's clear that you had a very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, even when you said that you didn't. And our sister deserves that truth. Our sister deserves that truth. And if you are a person of character, think of your own daughters. Think of the ages that they were when you met Virginia Giuffre. What would you want for your own daughters? Would it matter if the abusers of your children were entitled or in power? Absolutely not. You wouldn't care what side of the aisle they stand on, how much money they have. You would want their perpetrators to come forward. And that is what we're asking.
That is the wife of the brother of Virginia Giuffre. That is Amanda Roberts. Let's speak to royal commentator Rupert Bell. Hi, Rupert.
Morning, Callum.
It's good to speak to you this morning. So then let's kind of try to dive into where we're at with all of this. There are various claims around this morning of who tipped the balance against Andrew when it came to the decision of the King. Was it the King himself? Was it the Queen? Was it William and Kate? And the Times reporting this morning is actually that one of the final parts of this puzzle was that Sarah Ferguson decided that she was going to leave, that she was going to desert Andrew, and that's where the whole thing started disintegrating.
I think there's just been pressure from all departments, I think would be the best way of describing it. And maybe Sarah Ferguson's decision was the final piece of the jigsaw. But I think the King and Queen obviously began to feel that initially that this is really getting out of control. And over the last few weeks, it clearly has, with all the Jeffrey Epstein revelations and obviously around Sarah Ferguson as well, all those emails. It finally began to be eating away at the credibility of the royal family. So I think it's all part of a jigsaw, various parts all feeling they needed some form of strong action to actually see they're trying to get a control of the narrative. And it has raced out of control. Will this stop it racing out of control in the future? Well, you've just heard, perhaps not, because there may be more things that come out. But at least it sort of moved him away from maybe the spotlight of living in this 30-room mansion in Windsor and sort of secreted away in Norfolk. How popular that's going to go down with the people in Norfolk, I'm not entirely sure. But what is the King's hands are a little bit tied in this. So he's found him somewhere to live. and he wants him to go away as quietly as is possible. And for Sarah Ferguson, she's now got to plough her own furrow away from being with Andrew, as he is now known, and to get on with her own life. But it's not going to be easy. The royal family, if they think this is over, I think sadly they may be mistaken.
Tell us more about the relationship between Fergie and Andrew. They divorced in 1996, and this is now the point where they are going to finally go their separate ways. What do we know about how the two have cohabited and coexisted in these last decades?
I suppose it does, on the face of it, look quite extraordinary. But the royal family have always sort of deemed in many ways to try and find a way to keep Sarah Ferguson on side. And they were always happy that, in a way, that, and particularly the late Queen, that Andrew was able, that they sort of worked it out for the sake of their own children, and that they went forward. And because obviously Sarah Ferguson's life at various stages has had some colourful moments and also controversial moments. So the royal family were keen to keep her on side. But obviously, I suppose you look at it, it's good that they were divorced and able to work out their future together. But recently things have obviously unravelled. And for Sarah Ferguson, she too needs to get away from the spotlight as well. And ultimately, you've got to think most, I suppose, pertinently, their children. How are they coping with this? Because they're just seeing this media storm and everything analysed about their parents. So it's certainly tough on Beatrice and Eugenie. And I know from the King and other members of the family are keen to sort of protect them to some extent because there is a sense of loyalty towards those two. But for Sarah and Andrew, yes, on the paper it looked a strange relationship, but it was one I think the royal family were keen to sort of keep on side.
We're also trying to understand this morning how the former Duke of York will fund his private lifestyle from here on out. There's reporting that he will receive a large one-off payment and then an annual stipend designed to prevent him overspending in his new life. It sounds like the King is going to fund this. He'll get an initial six-figure sum that will cover his move from Royal Lodge as part of the end of the lease deal, and then he will get something paid from King Charles's private funds to sustain him.
And this has always been, as part of the sticking point, was the fact that he had this lease on the Royal Lodge till 2078, I think it was, 75-year lease, and he put in a lot of money. So there presumably had been some negotiations as to what the sort of settlement would be. And the King has obviously said, right, I need to get you there. I need to keep you under control. And you're going to be at my behest in many ways, controlling what he does financially. Look, he's going to be almost like a hermit up there because, what will he be able to do? Yes, we've seen him riding around Windsor Park. I assume there's plenty of opportunity to do that. But the King wants to control what he does because what he's been doing over the last few years, it's been a runaway train. And unfortunately, that has then brought disgrace upon what it feels like other members of the royal family.
Yeah. What sort of life awaits him, do you think, Rupert? There is something of a storm around him right now. There has been for a number of years. There have been various flashpoints along the timeline of this sorry saga as well. Has the King ended our obsession with Andrew by exiling him?
I'm not sure that if further revelations come out, we'll still be hearing about him. But maybe they're just trying to say, right, he's behind the green baize door and we don't hear of him again. That's what hopefully the King's going to say and wish to happen. But I don't actually see this being the case, because if there are more email revelations, then he won't be shut away, because there may be more pressure for something else to happen. But for the King, he does want that. The trouble is, Andrew, his sense of entitlement and, people saying he probably doesn't even know how to boil an egg because everything's been done for him throughout his life. It's certainly going to be very humbling for him. Will he take it on the chin and accept that his fall from grace is permanent and that he has to now rebuild his life? Well, I think it's going to be a tough tough one for someone who all his life was certainly sure of his own status in life and upset people. And what is interesting, it doesn't appear that he's got many friends coming out prepared to support him. So that is also his problem. Has he got many friends who want to associate with him? I do know that he has had, been doing things recently that he would like to do, but will he be able to do in the future? Will he be able to host, I suppose, shooting parties at Sandringham? I don't think so, because they don't want to see him in the spotlight and sort of holding court over people.
Yeah. Rupert Bell, thank you very much indeed. Good to speak to you this morning. That is royal commentator Rupert Bell.